Function operations. Let's say we're given two functions to start with, f of x and g of x. When I'm adding them, f of g of x is the same thing as saying f of x plus g of x. So that's going to be x squared minus 1 plus x plus 1, which is going to give us an x squared plus x, and then plus 1 and minus 1 cancel out to 0. F times g of x is going to be the same thing as saying f of x times g of x. So if we multiply these two things, it's a binomial times a binomial, so we need to use FOIL. We'll get x to the third. The outer will give us x squared. The inner will give us negative x, and the last will give us a negative 1. F divided by g of x is the same thing as saying f of x over g of x, or divided by g of x. In this case, that's going to give us x squared minus 1 over x plus 1. And we need to rewrite the top in factored form so that we can simplify. So that would actually give us x plus 1 times x minus 1, because it's the difference of two squares, over x plus 1. And then the x plus 1 will cancel out, and we'll get that the final answer here is going to be x minus 1. So we have all of our final answers for these first three examples. Now, f of 3, when you start talking numerically, means you take the 3 and you plug it in for x into the f function. So 3 squared minus 1 is going to give us 8. G of 3 means I take the 3 and I plug it in for x in the g function. So that's going to give me a 4. F of g of 3 means I'm going to start from the inside and work my way out. So I'm going to do g of 3 first, and the f is going to stay on the outside. So g of 3 would be 3 plus 1. So that gives me f of 4. And now I'm going to take the 4 and plug it into the f function. So that's going to be 4 squared minus 1, which is 15. Now in reverse, now I'm doing the f function first. So this one's going to be g of, instead of f of 3, I take the 3 and I plug it into the g function. 3 squared minus 1 is going to give me 8. So now I'm finding g of 8. That's going to be 8 plus 1, which is 9. Now, if you're working with variables, what I'm going to do is g of x is equal to x plus 1. So I'm going to find f of x plus 1, which means I'm going to take the x plus 1 and plug it in for the x. So that means I'm going to get x plus 1 squared minus 1 on the outside. Now on the other hand, when I'm taking f of x first, well, f of x is x squared minus 1. And now g of x means instead of the x here, I'm going to plug in x squared minus 1 plus 1. The minus 1 and plus 1 cancels out, so I'm just left with x squared.